There is a specific kind of silence that you only find at 3 a.m. on a desolate highway. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the feeling that the rest of the world has simply stopped existing. Most of us drive these roads purely to get from point A to point B. We trust the asphalt, we trust the GPS. But what happens when the road you're on refuses to let you leave? On November 14, 2022, a long-haul trucker named Elias was crossing the expanse of the Nevada basin. He was 20 years into the job. He knew every curve, every pothole, and every rest stop. But that night, at mile marker 84, Elias saw headlights in his rearview mirror that shouldn't have been there. They weren't getting closer, and they weren't falling back. They were mimicking his exact speed, down to the decimal. When Elias finally pulled over to let them pass, the car didn't drive by. It simply vanished. And what he found waiting for him on the road ahead would make him quit driving forever.
Our first story comes from a woman named Sarah, a traveling nurse based in Oregon. It was October 2021. Sarah was finishing a brutally long double shift and began the 2-hour drive back to her home in a rural part of the state. Now, Sarah was a local. She knew the back roads. Specifically, she took a shortcut known as the Old Mill Logging Road to shave about 30 minutes off her commute. It's a paved road, but narrow, flanked on both sides by dense, ancient pine forests. At around 11:45 p.m., Sarah is about 6 miles into the woods. She's listening to a podcast, trying to stay awake, driving at a steady 45 miles per hour. That's when she notices something odd about her GPS. The GPS kept telling her to make a U-turn at the next opportunity. Sarah ignored it, assuming the signal was just bouncing off the trees. She knew this road. It was a straight shot. But then the pavement changed. Sarah reported that the road, which was usually old, cracked asphalt, suddenly looked pristine, brand new. The yellow lines were vibrant, freshly painted. The potholes were gone. It was smooth, too smooth. She slowed down, confused. She hadn't heard of any construction crews out here, especially not crews that could repave 10 miles of road in a single day. That's when she saw the car. About 100 yards ahead, a dark red sedan was parked horizontally across both lanes, completely blocking her path. No lights were on, no hazards, just a dead car sitting in the silence. Sarah's instinct as a nurse kicked in. Was someone hurt? Did they spin out? She slowed her vehicle to a crawl, stopping about 50 feet away. She rolled down her window slightly to listen. Silence. No engine noise, no movement inside the red sedan. But then Sarah noticed the detail that made her blood run cold. The red sedan was her car. It was the same make, the same model, the same dent on the rear bumper where she'd backed into a mailbox 2 years prior. It even had her nursing school alumni sticker on the back windshield. Sarah sat there, idling, staring at a physical impossibility. She was driving her car, yet looking at her car. Suddenly, the driver's side door of the stationary red sedan opened. Sarah didn't wait to see who or what stepped out. Panic, primal and overwhelming, took over. She threw her car into reverse, slamming on the gas. She reversed blindly down the winding logging road for nearly a quarter of a mile until she found a gravel turnout wide enough to spin the car around. She floored it back the way she came, tires screeching, engine redlining. She didn't look in the rearview mirror. She was terrified that if she looked, she would see those headlights chasing her. She made it back to the main highway in record time. She pulled into a brightly lit 24-hour gas station and just sat there, shaking, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. But here is where the story shifts from a hallucination to a mystery. Sarah checked her phone to call her husband. She expected it to be around midnight. The time on her phone read 3:15 a.m. The drive into the woods had only taken 20 minutes. The drive out, perhaps 10. But somehow, in that stretch of freshly paved road, Sarah had lost nearly 3 hours of time. When she checked her dashcam footage the next morning, hoping for answers, the file was corrupted, but the timestamp on the last uncorrupted frame, right before she entered the woods, showed the correct time, 11:45 p.m. To this day, Sarah takes the highway. She adds 30 minutes to her commute, and she never looks at the entrance to the old mill logging road, because she knows that somewhere down that path, there might still be a red sedan waiting for her to come back. Sarah's story could be dismissed as exhaustion, a waking dream caused by sleep deprivation. But our next encounter is much harder to dismiss, because it wasn't a trick of the mind. It was a calculated trap set by people who knew exactly how to exploit a driver's empathy.
Story 02: The Good Samaritan Trap. We are taught from a young age to help people. If you see someone in distress, you stop. It's the unwritten code of the road. But in July of 2023, a driver named Marcus learned that some predators use that code against you. Marcus was driving a pickup truck through the back roads of rural Arkansas. It was around 2 a.m. The roads there are narrow, surrounded by tall cornfields that create walls on either side of your vehicle. As Marcus rounded a sharp bend, he saw a sedan pulled over on the shoulder. The hazard lights were flashing. A young woman was standing in the middle of the lane, waving her arms frantically. She looked terrified. Marcus did what any decent person would do. He began to slow down. He could see she was crying, mouthing the word, "Help." He checked his rearview mirror, empty. He started to pull over to the shoulder, rolling down his window to ask what was wrong. But as his truck came to a crawl, his headlights swept across the cornfield to his right. Now, Marcus was an avid hunter. He had trained his eyes to spot movement in the brush, and in that split second, the light caught something that didn't belong in a cornfield. It wasn't an animal. It was the reflection of a crowbar. Hiding just inside the tree line, about 10 feet behind the crying woman, were 3 men. They were crouched low, dressed in dark clothing, waiting for the moment Marcus put his truck in park and unlocked his doors. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The woman wasn't a victim. She was the bait. Marcus didn't stop. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, swerving around the woman. As he sped past, the terrified look on her face instantly vanished. She didn't scream, she didn't run. She just stood there, stone-faced, watching his taillights fade. When Marcus called the county sheriff miles down the road, they told him he was the 3rd call that week. But every time patrol cars went to the location, the sedan and the cornfield crew were gone. It's a chilling reminder. Sometimes the most dangerous thing on the road isn't a ghost. It's the living. Our final story takes us to the American Southwest, on a stretch of Route 66 that has been largely forgotten by modern traffic. This account comes from a solo road tripper named Ken. Ken isn't a superstitious man. He's a mechanic, a guy who deals in nuts, bolts, and reality. But what he saw on a Tuesday evening in 2019 defies mechanics. He was driving a vintage convertible with the top down, enjoying the cool desert air. He was the only car on the road for miles. He happened to glance at his rear-view mirror and noticed a figure in the back seat. Ken's heart stopped. He hadn't picked anyone up. He hadn't stopped for gas in 2 hours. He blinked, looked again. The back seat was empty, just his duffel bag. He laughed it off. Just a shadow, just a trick of the light. He turned up the radio and kept driving. 10 minutes later, he felt a weight shift in the car. The suspension dipped slightly in the back right corner as if someone heavy had just settled in. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He looked in the mirror again. This time the figure was clear. It was a man, pale, wearing a suit that looked decades out of date. He wasn't moving. He was just sitting there, staring at the back of Ken's head. Ken slammed on the brakes, screeching to a halt in the middle of the empty highway. He spun around, ready to fight. The seat was empty. Ken got out of the car. He checked the trunk, he checked the undercarriage. Nothing. He was alone in the desert. Thinking he was losing his mind, Ken got back in the car. But as he reached for the ignition, he noticed something on the leather of the back seat. The leather was depressed, compressed, as if someone was currently sitting there, invisible to the eye, but possessing physical mass.
Ken didn't drive his car out of there. He walked. He walked 4 miles to the nearest town and called a tow truck. He sold the convertible the next day. He told the buyer it was a gas guzzler, but the truth was, Ken couldn't shake the feeling that if he ever looked in that mirror again, the passenger would be closer. And next time, they might not just be watching. Whether it's a glitch in the fabric of time, a trap set by predators, or a presence that rides along in the empty seat, the road is a strange place. It is a liminal space, a transition between where we were and where we are going. And sometimes, in that transition, we brush up against things that aren't meant to be seen. So the next time you're driving alone at night, and you see headlights in your rearview mirror that don't seem quite right, don't slow down. And whatever you do, don't look in the back seat. If you have a story from the road, something you can't explain, let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want to sleep with the lights on tonight, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'll be back on the road soon. Safe travels.